friends, Kristen from the Three Black Cats Embroidery and Custom Gifts here. Before we get started, a little bit about me. I've been sewing for almost 40 years. I've been embroidering for the last 5 years and just came up on my second anniversary of digitizing embroidery designs. Welcome to the Rainbow Doom Room. Let's get started. I'm really excited to show you all what I discovered last night in Wilcom Hatch 3.0. It will most likely work in 2.0 and 1.0 as well, but I am currently using 3.0, so that is how I'm going to show you today. It was my ex's year this year to buy our daughter's school supplies, so he bought her a backpack that I absolutely fell in love with. So I challenged myself to recreate it without taking it apart, because that would not have been cool. So I measured up all the pieces, made some adjustments, made some adjustments here and there to sizes, or construction of various bits. Then I set about making a paper pattern pieces with all of my measurements. From that, I cut a muslin to make sure all of my measurements were accurate, and with only a few minor overages, I was able to create a mostly sewn mock-up. I didn't sew everything like the binding and the straps because I was more concerned about the construction of the bag itself. The next thing I did was open Hatch and start building the design. I started by adjusting the grid spacing, which will go over here to grid, right-click on it, and I changed mine to 1/4 inch in both directions. You can obviously change it to whatever size and shape that you prefer using, but since most of my measurements were in 1/4 inch increments, I figured 1/4 inch would be the easiest. The next thing I did was I turned off the hoop. So if you have your hoop on, turn it off. You're not going to need it because most of the pieces that you're going to be using are probably going to be bigger than your hoops anyway. You just want to have the open field or design area to see all the pieces once you've gotten them all inputted into the computer. Then with the exception of sequence over here, and object properties if you really need to, but sequence is really about the only docker that you'll need, so you don't have to worry about any of these others. I used, as you can see, a total of 3 colors. I used blue for the cut line, I used red for the seam allowance line, and I used black for the lettering. I also used, if you want to use a thicker line, you could probably change these to, say, a 1.5 to 2 millimeter wide satin stitch to make it a little bit thicker. I just use a single stitch to create the cutting and seam allowance lines. I also used the font quilting text because it was a thin font. It doesn't show, satin stitches or anything like that, and it gave it a little bit of an interesting flair with the angles. It looked like everything was stitched. I also added over here a 1 inch square to every piece. Well, every piece that was bigger than 1 inch anyway. This was simply to make sure that each piece was cutting at the appropriate size, and it, again, doesn't need to be done on every piece, but it can be helpful for any patterns that you make in the future or any customers that may have any questions about it. If the text was too large, all I did was shrink it down so it would fit in the piece, but most of my pieces were fairly large to begin with, so that didn't matter too much. Sorry about that. Once each piece was done, I selected all of the objects in that piece and grouped them together so it would be easier to move. Like so. Once I had all the pieces stitched out in the program, I saved it as an EMB file. Click Save, and you can see right here, this is all of the pieces. I'll just type it in flap and save it. Once I did this, then I go back up to File up here in the corner and scroll down to Print Preview. This will then show you how it will print out. Scroll through the pages. If you see a bunch of connectors, you'll see a lot of times that'll be on, that, and design information, I believe, are the ones that are typically selected when you open this print options up here in this little button. What you want to do is turn off everything except for design worksheet, stitches, outlines, and then make sure that whole design and zoom 1:1 or 100% of actual size is selected. So we'll just, oops, not that one, that one. Don't need the crosshairs, don't need the guides or the design information. So your print options should look like this when you're done. Then you want to check and see these numbers up here are going to be in every corner except for the final outside corners. But you'll see there's a crosshair in each corner with a number. And what you're going to do is you're going to place one crosshair on top of the other one that matches the numbers. I found the easiest way to do this was to take a pin and push it through the center of the crosshairs here, and then push it through the center of the crosshairs here. And I taped my pattern on my ironing board, so I just kind of stuck the pins in the ironing board to keep them positioned properly while I taped them together. And one other thing, once you go through all your pieces, if you find a bunch of empty pages, go back, just click out Close, and rearrange where your pieces are on the design field. I found it was easiest to click this button up here to make it so that the 0 is in the corner as opposed to in the middle of the design. So it was easier for me that way to go move that there and move other pieces around it to position other areas so that you're using the least amount of paper possible. Once you're satisfied with how your printout will look, go back to File once again and click Print Design. Now, this little pop-up will show up, and what you're going to do is go to this scroll bar menu and click on Microsoft Print to PDF. Once you do that, click OK, and it will pop up a Save Print Output As. So I'm just going to try and type in here. Flat. And I will save it, and it will save as a PDF file. Now, you don't have to do every single piece individually like I did here. I used, this is the entire backpack design that I made last night, and I'll just show you with multiple pieces how it would look. And so you can see there's multiple pieces, and you can click through to make sure they're all properly where you want them. If you find a large chunk of white space, you may want to move or adjust your pattern pieces accordingly. Then all you have to do, once that is done, is open where the pattern is, and the PDF will now open in Adobe Acrobat, and then you can go ahead and print it, just like you normally would. And again, check to make sure that all the pieces are where you want them, click Print, and you're good to go. Now, I will be heading over to my ironing table, and I will show you just exactly how I put the pieces together.